Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hey, That's Me, a commentary podcast. I'm Patrick Hotner.
I'm Brian Lynch, and you know what? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Today's our holiday episode.
Happy Honda days.
Wow. We're not going to be talking about Honda days on this podcast.
No, but we have a sponsor. They just don't know it.
This is a podcast where we do audio commentaries on movies or TV shows with people who worked on projects who never got to do commentaries for them. Whether that's a writer or an actor or a set designer or
costume lady
or an executive from a network, like anything. We want to know what all these people do, how they do their jobs, how they fit into the puzzle piece that is a television show or a movie.
Right. Like last week we had Cameron Crowe on.
No, Brian.
Why won't you let me do it? Then they have to go look for it, and they'll never find it.
Oh, Brian.
Look, we changed the joke. Now he's already been on.
Yeah, but a lot of these people, they don't get to talk about their projects at length. A lot of if something comes out on physical media now, there's not a lot of bonus features on it.
No.
And there's not a lot of people getting to talk about specific things, give their memories or give their why did this happen? Why did they do this? How did they build this set? Whatever it is.
And as someone who likes what they do for a living and they do it because of these commentaries, maybe our podcast will inspire other people to work in the industry.
That's the goal.
To stay out of the industry because it's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough.
Right now it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
That's
why we're doing this.
That's why we've pivoted to podcasts.
That's not why.
Podcast industry is booming.
Yeah. Well, it helped pick the president.
We have one rule, and it's that when the person sees themselves on screen or sees their credit on screen,
they have to say,
"Hey, that's me."
This is a very special holiday episode because we are watching a very special holiday episode of Melrose Place.
Yes, with Mara Wilson,
who has done much better things than Melrose Place.
That's true.
She's Matilda.
Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire. She's not Mrs. Doubtfire.
No.
She was the daughter.
She's the daughter. Miracle on 34th Street. Multiple holiday things.
All of these would have been so fun to do with her.
Yes.
But she chose Melrose Place, and thank goodness she did. Because it was a Christmas miracle.
And it's very fun.
It's so fun. The show is great.
I had never seen Melrose Place before.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so this was the only episode I've seen out of context. I don't know who any of the characters are. And it was very fun trying to figure out relationships and who is who and what,
80 storylines in this
genuinely
40-minute episode. Yes.
But it's very fun. It's streaming on Paramount Plus.
I want to watch the whole run. This one episode made me want to watch the whole run.
I have great news for you.
What? Go ahead.
You can.
Happy Honda days. Now are we promoting Paramount Plus too?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of good stuff on it.
Mara is so funny in her while talking about it. She was super young when she did this.
Yes.
And she still remembers a lot of it.
Yeah.
She has ideas for what happened to her character. And I loved this one. I loved doing this with her. She was great. My favorite episode, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I really like Mara, a great storyteller, has had a wild life and a fascinating life, and is one of the child stars who came out on the other side doing pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's always nice to see. Big fan of Mara. You should go follow her on all the socials. She's all over the place.
And now you're a big fan of Courtney Thorne-Smith.
That's true.
And Josie Passett. And Daphne Zuniga.
And Doug Savant.
And Grant Show.
Yep.
I don't know. And Andrew Shue.
Daphne Zuniga's sister is in this episode.
Oh, very briefly.
Yeah.
See if you can spot her before we do. This is great, guys. So this is our big Christmas episode. And Hanukkah. We mention it. I think she mentioned
every holiday is encompassed in
we don't mention Kwanzaa. We should have.
We just did right now.
Oh, happy Kwanzaa.
Happy holidays, everyone. This episode is called Under the Mistletoe. It's season 2, episode 15 of Melrose Place.
You don't need to watch any other episodes.
No.
Just watch it. We didn't, and it was the best. So just watch it with us and Mara.
And it's on Paramount Plus now. So if you pull it up, we're going to count down from 3, and then we'll say go, and that is when you should press play.
That's right.
You ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1, go! All right, here we are. We're watching Melrose Place, season 2, episode 15.
It originally aired December 22nd, 1993.
This is Patrick.
And this is Brian.
And this is Mara Wilson.
Oh my gosh, Nikki Petrova herself.
That's what people know me for.
So you did 5 episodes of this?
I think I did. And honestly, it was one of the most fun jobs I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
It was so much fun. Everybody was nice, even the characters who are horrible.
Right.
They were all so nice. And we, like Doug, who played Matt, there he is, my gay stepfather in the credits. He was so kind, and every time we would, I know, I love that there's a gratuitous shot of a shirtless Grant Show opening a refrigerator door. But we had so much fun on this set, and like anytime, the director said print it, which, means that's the take they want to use. Doug and I had a print dance, like a victory dance that we would do. And just everybody on the show was so nice.
Yeah.
And and we were filming at this place up in Santa Clarita, which is like, kind of like a half hour outside LA. And it was a studio that they used because it was the only one that would let them build a pool.
Oh, wow.
Into the place there. And I always wanted to go swimming in it, but I couldn't.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Now, this is the Christmas episode.
This is the Christmas episode, and there's nothing like opening a Christmas episode with a sex scene.
Just like Miracle on 34th Street.
Yes. You're sort of the Christmas girl a little bit.
I guess I am.
You've got a couple Christmas things.
Which is funny because I'm Jewish. But I think that but then if you look at like the best Christmas songs, they were all written by Jews.
That's true.
White Christmas, we got the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So here Heather Locklear.
She's casually grabbing the pillow.
She's grabbing a pillow, and as my name appears in the credits.
Yes.
It doesn't look like she disappears, like because it dissolves into her, and I feel like he imagined the whole thing.
It's a Back to the Future situation.
Yeah, there's Andrew Shue, who he was they were all really sweet. Yeah. And Andrew wakes up in Heather Locklear's apartment, and he's like, "Uh-oh, I got to put on my boxers and go home." He's sort of like he's in this on and off relationship with Courtney Thorne-Smith's character. Mm-hmm. There's a will they or won't they in the first season, and then it turns out they will. But then he has a crush on his boss.
I appreciate all this context so much. It really helps so much.
It's Cliff Notes.
Yes, because it's so complicated.
Yes, right.
But I loved being on this show so much. And I thought that I was just like, this is such a fun show to be on. Yeah. And I thought that this was kind of what adults did.
Sure.
And I was like horrified.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, if you don't like settle down and become boring like my parents, you end up like sleeping with all your neighbors.
No, I mean, this was early for you too.
This was very early. I think I was 5 or 6.
I think Doubtfire came out November of this year.
Yes, this must
it's
have
like
been
right around the same time.
Right around the same time.
Yeah. Wow.
That. So he sneaks out the door and down the stairs
with one
shoe.
I mean, it's a great
half
set.
naked or like in his boxers.
Yeah.
And and wait for it. Hey, that's me.
Yay!
There's 6-year-old, 5-year-old me, and I'm handing him a Christmas ornament, and he's holding his clothes because he's not fully dressed. And I give one for his roommate.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand the concept of this scene, like that he was sneaking back in after sleeping with somebody.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay, he's in his boxers. He's holding, I thought maybe he was doing his laundry.
Yeah, how much of the storyline did they keep from you as a child?
I mean, my part of it was pretty innocent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So and my mom told me like a couple of things.
Okay.
But like there was an episode later on where Sydney became a stripper.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my mom told me about that.
Sure.
I don't know, but actually, no, I know why she told me that because there's a joking line in Mrs. Doubtfire about a stripper. And I was like, what's a stripper, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
And so she explained. So, yeah. So there was a lot that was kept from me. I kind of couldn't keep track of like who was dating who.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this show is really addictive.
Yeah.
So we started watching it at home, and sometimes my mom would like tape it and then fast forward
Sure.
to through some of the scenes. Like I remember when we watched this episode, she would fast forward through all of the Sydney sex worker scenes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was a little too complicated to explain.
I did that for Patrick too when we were watching it.
Yeah, I was like, I can't know
By
about
the way,
this.
there's Grant Show in the kitchen without a shirt again, just
He's
like in the
just
opening
shirtless.
credits.
It's true.
He's just shirtless.
All the time.
Yeah. And Courtney Thorne-Smith appears at the door asking where Billy, her on-again, off-again boyfriend is. And she is wearing the most 90s suit.
Very Murphy Brown.
It is.
She looks extremely Murphy Brown or Nancy Reagan. Like
Yeah.
one of the two.
It's very interesting watching this show and seeing how styles went from like 80s to 90s. Like if you watch the first season, everybody still looks like it's the 80s. You know, there's still the big hair and yeah, then she comes in wearing this suit with the big shoulders and the big lapels, and it's bright red with huge buttons. And then it kind of, and then like it gets into this very 90s thing, and suddenly people are wearing chokers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here is my stepdad.
There he is.
There he is.
Doug Savant, a guy I love from Desperate Housewives.
He is the best.
He's so good on that show.
He is
He's
one of the
fun on
nicest
this.
men
Yeah.
in the world. And this show was how I learned what gay was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How do they handle it on the show? Is it like, does it age well in retrospect?
Kind of, actually.
Yeah.
But he's, so he's telling me, so what I want for Christmas, so the thing is, my mother is Russian.
Yes.
And she kind of asked if, so I want to throw a Christmas party.
Uh-huh.
That's what everybody wants here. He's asking me what I want for Christmas. I say I want to have a Christmas party. And I'm saying, can we please have snow?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm from Russia and I miss snow.
Did you do any research into Russia as a
A
child?
little bit.
Okay,
A
yeah.
little bit.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
mom was that kind, and he's saying, let's rent White Christmas because in LA, that's as close as you're going to get to snow.
Uh-huh.
But so the story with this is that he is an openly gay character, and he's kind of like, his character is sort of like too nice and too good in a way.
right.
Like, I think that they kind of, I'm glad they didn't make him a gay stereotype, but they also kind of couldn't, they made him like flawless.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so what he does is he works in a hospital, and there is, I think he's a social worker in the hospital, and there's a doctor there who came from Russia but was escaping the fall of the USSR.
Sure.
And she has a daughter there, but her green card's almost up.
Wow.
So she's like, hey, could you marry me so I can stay in the country?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a very popular storyline because she was written off after 5 episodes. And I imagine that probably a lot of the gay fans were like, hey,
Yeah.
what the hell?
I was reading a comment section for people who were rewatching this episode,
Mhm.
and they said that character was so sad that you were leaving because he's like, what else am I going to do on the show now? Because
Yeah.
you were the thing like holding him in the
That was
story
his
at that
storyline.
moment.
Yeah, because they were like, they definitely, it falls into this everybody sleeping with each other,
Yeah.
everybody hooking up with each other, everybody backstabbing each other for jobs. And, that's when things started to go off the rails in this season.
Mhm.
Things get really weird. People like come back from dying. People like, like this character, Michael, he gets drunk in a car accident with a woman he's having an affair with, and he ostensibly kills her, but then she comes back.
Sure.
But she comes back evil.
As one does.
And Marcia Cross is so great as that character.
Yeah.
Also, poor Laura Leighton. She came into this show as sort of like, a kind of like girls just want to have fun type of character.
Oh.
And then they like made her kind of evil too,
Yeah.
but then they kind of changed her personality again.
Yeah.
And there are like entire like theses written on the transformation of her character. And I'm like, they really threw a lot at her.
Which maybe is fun.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're like, this is the kind of show I'm on.
Well,
I don't know,
it was
screw
supposed
it,
to
I'm
be
gonna
like
have
a
fun.
normal show.
That's
Right.
what we were talking
Well,
about
this
earlier,
couple was
yeah.
supposed to be the happy, normal married couple in the beginning of the show. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
very quickly went off the rails.
And there's like a multi-episode arc in the first season about her having a miscarriage,
Mhm.
and she's like incredibly sad about it for understandably many, many episodes.
Yeah.
But then in like other episodes, like further down the line in this show, people will like have babies, be forced to give them up for adoption. and then like be fine in the next episode. Or people will shoot somebody and be fine in the next episode. People will reveal that they have like the most traumatic things you can imagine happening to them, and they'll be fine a season later. And so it is kind of odd to be like, wow, you know, they spent so much time on this in the first season, like you would in like a realistic storyline, and then things just get weird.
Insane. Were you good at learning lines when you were this age?
I actually was, I think. I mean, I don't think I was a wonderful actress, but I think that I was, I had a good ear for dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a really big eavesdropper.
Oh.
So I was used to listening to what people said and hearing them and sort of repeating it. And so I would just sort of say things out loud, and I would hear. I was an auditory learner, as they used to say. And so that was actually surprisingly easy for me. Yeah. But I think that in some ways I could kind of get a little bit wooden, because it was like I was trying to say something the same way over and over again. And, you know, and that's not real acting. So sometimes I watch my performances and I'm like, God, I was so wooden. And but I mean, every now and then, like, I remember talking to my dad about that, being like, Dad, I wasn't a good actor when I was a child. He's like, Mara, you were a child.
Also, you were a good actor.
You really were. Yeah. He's like, you were. And I was like, no, I wasn't. And he's like, well, you were a child, for God's sake, give yourself a break.
I mean, you are, and not to like, you know, tell you this because you obviously know it. You're one of the few child actors who has multiple things that have like stood the test of time, you know?
Yeah.
So there was something there.
I guess
whether you want to believe it or not, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Melrose Place.
Melrose Place. Yes. Well, that's the thing. I do think Melrose Place has this sort of weird cult status.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And I wish more people knew that I was in it, because it was such a fun, campy thing. Yeah. Yeah. It was really fun.
Do you remember it was just a regular audition? Is that how you got it?
Yes. And then there were a bunch of auditions. I remember there was one where there were so many people in the there were like so many girls there, and this man came out and he was like, I'm so sorry to keep you all waiting. You know, like he was like, you guys have been waiting for so long. You've all been so good about this. He said, here, take my jacket, like as a joke, like here, I'll give this. And then he went back in and my mom said, that's Aaron Spelling.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's the guy that, you know.
The guy that you want to be friends with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I remember that aspect of it. I don't remember much more, but I do remember there being lots of little girls there. Yeah. And I remember talking to, oh gosh, what was her name? The woman who played my mother. And she, and I remember us asking, like, is there anything that we would call my mother in Russian? And I don't think she was actually Russian. I think she was maybe Polish. But, you know, she knew enough about Eastern Europe. Yeah. She was very sweet to me.
Do you remember how much you auditioned before you started booking things?
Yes, I went on lots of auditions for commercials. Yeah. Lots of auditions for commercials. But I got the first movie I auditioned for.
Oh, wow.
Which was Doubtfire.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a big cattle call, and my mom didn't want to let me audition for it because she thought that it would be too much for me, but she never thought I would get it, so she let me audition. People always say, oh, your parents pushed you into it, and I'm like, no, I grew up in Burbank. Yeah. It was a normal thing to be an actor. Yeah. And I said, yeah, no, I wanted to be an actor. I thought that it would be fun. I was a performative kid. And so I thought that it would be fun to audition for a movie, and we auditioned, and I don't think my parents would have let me do it if they had known that I was going to be successful. Yeah. I thought they thought that I was going to be in a commercial or two. Sure. They'd put the money aside for college, and then I'd go back to, you know, just living a normal life.
What did they do again?
Well, my dad was an electronics engineer at a TV station. Oh, wow. He worked at NBC, and then he worked at the local I guess, I don't know what it is now. It was WB, then CW, then God only knows what it is. Yeah, Channel 5. He's an electronics engineer. And he loves his job. And my mom had 5 children to raise, so she had jobs, but not like an actual career. And back in those days, you could live in Burbank and have, 5
children to raise,
5 children to raise, and only do odd jobs and not have a serious full-time job. Yeah. So she but she probably would have been a producer if
Interesting.
she passed away, but she probably would have gone into being a producer.
Mhm.
She had a lot of ideas, and she always loved movies.
Yeah.
We were like watching like Preston Sturges movies and, Alfred
cool.
Hitchcock when I was like 5. So yeah.
What were your favorite movies or TV shows when you were growing up?
Okay. This is weird, but it also shows what generation my parents were
Sure.
from. One of them was Help
Oh,
by
great.
the Beatles.
Yeah.
Here's Sydney, by the way. Sydney is the one right now. She's working, and they're mentioning having a Christmas party.
Mhm.
And she says that she's working really hard as a waitress. She also runs into this woman who is basically Heidi Fleiss, who is
Right.
a friend and is like, I can help you out with jobs if you'd like. And being a waitress is really hard. So, she's going to get drawn into this sort of like Svengali kind of thing.
Man.
I think that, or maybe she is like actually dating somebody. This woman even looks like Heidi Fleiss.
Yeah.
And Sydney is the sister of the short blonde-haired lady on the show, right?
Yes, she is.
With the wheelchair husband.
Yes,
And
yes,
the
yes.
husband who's in a wheelchair
Right,
because he killed his mistress.
Uh-huh.
But she'll be back later. He's also sort of having an on and off again affair with Sydney.
Oh my gosh.
Who's his wife's sister. So
Sure.
As one does.
yes,
Uh-huh.
so he's having an affair with 2 different redheaded women right now.
Mm-hmm.
And one's sort of young and naive, and the other is a doctor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Oh.
this is when, so this is actually really
Look
funny.
at that outfit.
I'm opening, it's a very 90s outfit. I'm
Yes.
opening a package from my mom.
Uh-huh.
And the thing about this scene was that I was supposed to be opening a bunch of presents. And then I was supposed to be in the script. It said that like I climb onto Matt's lap,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the script actually said literally, Nikki has instantly fallen asleep on Matt's chest. Matt is moved and touched.
Oh.
And Doug had, Doug had just had a baby.
Oh, sure.
And my mom, my little sister, you'll see I'm kind of
Immediately.
cuddle into him and I close my eyes. But when Doug came to set that day, he said like, are you serious? Like, is this really? And he came up to my mom, and my mom had also just had a baby the year before. My sister
Right.
was probably less than a year old.
Yeah.
And he was like, are they serious? They want a child to fall asleep instantly? That never happens. And my mom was like, yeah, that's ridiculous, right? And so when we did that scene, I was like, maybe I'll just kind of snuggle into him and, and like pretend to fall asleep, but not actually fall asleep. And so, so we had some plausible deniability there.
Amazing.
I think.
It was very sweet. It ended very sweetly. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that these two, all 4 of them are going for the same tree and they don't know it.
Yeah.
Such a classic misunderstanding.
Did you know how many episodes you were signed on for? Do you remember?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah.
I think,
They just wrapped it up when they wrapped it up.
Yeah, they did. And I think they expected my arc to be a little bit longer
Mhm.
at 1st.
Mhm.
But I think that maybe there was something with the actress where she had a conflict
Mhm.
because, it was written off pretty quickly. And I remember my mom saying that. It also might not have been a very popular show.
Sure.
So, yeah.
What was this is a Christmas question for you.
Okay.
What was your favorite Christmas gift as a kid?
Well, I was Jewish. So,
I guess
Gotcha.
yeah.
What a question. Oh my gosh.
I think, let's see. As a kid, I really loved my Playmobil dollhouse. And then, like I told you, my mom showed us a lot of old movies.
Yeah.
So after she showed me Psycho when I was 6, that was the thing. Like, I was too scared to watch Hocus Pocus, but my mom showed me Psycho. I think she had a good idea of like what I would and wouldn't understand.
Why do you think you were scared of Hocus Pocus but not
Because Psycho was above my comprehension, I think. I thought and it was black and white, so it was campy.
Sure.
So here Sydney is with some like rich old man that she's trying to seduce, and she's not very good at it, apparently.
She's still learning.
She's still learning, yeah. and she's wearing this like bright red dress, and she seems a little uncomfortable.
Very festive, though, the bright red dress.
It does feel very Christmassy. It does feel very Christmassy.
Are his pants already off?
And his pants are already off.
Yeah.
And he's saying that he's sad that he doesn't have anyone to talk to and spend time with at Christmas.
Well, then he should put his pants
Yeah,
on.
they're just going to
That's why
check.
people don't want to
Exactly.
talk to you, man.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that she's a little sad too, because like, you know, that's not what you want to hear, I think. That's not a work conversation. Are
Yeah.
you sad at
No.
Christmas? You know, like, you know, and that's I don't think that's like a sex work conversation. I don't know. I've
Sure.
never been a sex worker, but
Yeah.
I feel like talking about how sad you are. Well, probably that happens a lot, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that like for me, it was that dollhouse, and then after I watched Psycho, I turned that dollhouse into the Bates Motel.
Oh, that's
Wow.
great.
Yeah,
Wow.
I had a weird sense of humor as
Yeah.
a kid. And my brothers helped me, and then we just kind of turned it into a haunted house in
Great.
general. It was really fun.
Have you watched Hocus Pocus since?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I love Hocus
Yeah,
Pocus.
okay, good.
Great.
Yeah, I love Hocus Pocus. I don't think I've watched Psycho all the way through, though.
Oh, wow. It's good.
Now it is. It's great.
Psycho
good.
2 is good.
It's
Psycho 2's
great.
good.
Yep.
And it's genuinely scary now.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
because
true.
I'm an adult.
Yes.
So
Do you think, because this was so early for you, do you think being on this show got you other gigs?
yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. I think this was around the time that I was auditioning for Miracle.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
weird thing about Miracle at the time was that my character was supposed to be a boy named Jonathan.
Oh, is it a boy in the original?
No, it's a girl in the
That's
original.
what
It's
I thought.
Natalie
Yeah,
Wood.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think that
yes.
it was with John Hughes.
Yeah.
It was with John Hughes. Oh, and now this guy.
He decided not just talk.
Yeah, she was really sad because I don't think she wants to be doing this job anymore. And now he comes over and starts seducing her.
Did you
Yeah.
see the subtle look on her face that indicated she wasn't happy with it?
Yeah, exactly. They do a very slow zoom to her, you know,
She's
crying.
great. She's so
This
good.
should have been Robin Williams. It could have been a tie-in.
The outfit
Mhm.
is very similar to Doubtfire.
Yes, there's the nurse that's taking care
Yes.
of Michael.
She's very good.
Yeah,
the
she is.
actor.
She is great. Yeah, she's one of those character actresses that shows up in things, and you're
Yeah.
like, all right, it's her.
Yeah.
And and Michael's just being an asshole, and he's feeling sorry for himself for being a drunk driver and killing somebody and ending up in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
He's this hotshot doctor, and he should not be operating on anybody.
No.
He is not. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like he's in the right headspace for
No,
it.
he's not. Anyway, what were we talking about?
We were talking about
Hocus Pocus.
we're talking about Hocus
Psycho.
Pocus. Yeah, we're talking about what movies you liked when you were a kid.
Yeah. So Help
did it get
by
you
the
more
Beatles.
jobs?
Oh, yes,
which
that too.
which I liked. I liked that a lot. I mean, I liked Aladdin because it was, you know, the same time.
It's the best.
I liked I liked a lot of old movies because my mom liked old movies.
Yeah.
So we watched a lot of like West Side Story, and like I remember I had an audition once, and my mom and I watched Fried Green Tomatoes before we went to that audition, and so we both showed up like completely red-eyed.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom told me the thing. I was like, "Does it look like I've been crying before I go to this audition?" And she did that thing that moms always say. They say, "No, it just looks like you have allergies." At least that's what my mom always said when I had clearly been crying, and you could tell.
Do you remember auditioning for anything that you didn't end up getting that you wish you had?
Oh yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
All the time. Let's see. What did I audition for that I didn't? I used to joke that if I didn't get a role, Mae Whitman did.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Mae
Sure.
Whitman got a lot of my roles. And then when I got a little bit older, Kristen Stewart got all of my
Oh,
roles.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or I almost got all of her roles, I should say.
Yeah.
I didn't audition for Arrested Development because I was going away to school at the time, but I remember reading it and being like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be
you
good.
would've
I would have
been
been
fun on that.
I think I probably would have been maybe Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been really fun.
Mhm.
I think my mom was very particular about movies though.
Mhm.
And then when I got a little bit older after my mom passed away, my dad is an engineer through and through. He's
Mhm.
just pragmatic to the core. And my dad was just like, a job's a job, take any
Sure.
movie.
Sure. Yeah.
So a lot of the movies that I was in when I was a kid, I think are maybe a little bit better than some of the other movies later on. And I think it's also because my mom was kind of a loudmouth on set. So when there was when there was like something that didn't make sense, she'd be like, "Why are we doing this scene?"
Yeah.
And the directors would kind of have to answer to her.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you really did work with the trifecta of comedy here. You had Robin Williams, you had Danny DeVito, and you had Thomas the Tank Engine.
The
big three.
I had Martin Short too.
Oh,
I
Martin
mean,
Short.
like,
Yes, you did.
yeah, that's.
I don't know. I feel like Thomas maybe edges out Martin Short. Maybe that's just me.
Well, the Thomas fandom though is still huge,
Yeah.
and I still
Yeah.
get like Thomas. I have people coming up to me at conventions to give me Thomas trains
That's
and like
amazing.
to tell me like I loved Thomas so much, and yeah, that was another movie that like had a lot of weird studio interference, and so kind of didn't make sense. And I don't think they realized how big the Thomas fandom was.
Yeah.
Because the Thomas fandom was like, "What the hell did you do this movie?" And they knew that there was a lot of interference, and they were like, this movie could have been coherent,
Sure.
and it just wasn't.
Is that Baldwin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
Baldwin
the
was in it.
Conductor? Yeah.
That was
Baldwin was
my
in it.
nephew's first movie in the theater.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I took them with my sister, yes.
Really?
And he worships Thomas. He still does. He's 28 and he still loves Thomas the Tank Engine.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
he would yell at the screen whenever the trains weren't on the screen.
Yeah, that's a thing that I think people didn't understand about Thomas either. Was that people are mostly interested in the train
The train.
stories.
And they introduced a purple train that he was very excited about.
Oh my God.
Oh
Lady
yeah,
train.
lady,
There you
the
go.
train.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so. This is my childhood. I started out in Melrose Place and I ended up in Thomas the Tank Engine. That's a little bit of a career. So Sydney is now in a booth in like a confessional booth
Yeah.
in this church. The thing is, I think that is actually based on a real church and in LA, and that is not a Catholic church.
Oh.
I think
okay.
it's based on that one in Hollywood. The one that has like the big AIDS ribbon on it.
The
Yes,
Back to the Future
The Back
one.
to the Future basement.
Do you know
Is
about
that
this?
is that where they filmed
That's where
that?
they filmed the dance for Back to the Future. Was in the basement of that church.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. I remember going by. There was actually there were a couple AIDS plot lines in Melrose Place, and that's also I think how I learned what AIDS was.
Wow.
Oh wow.
And that's also I think why I ended up working with some charities that were for there was one that used to be called Children Affected by AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to they had a gala every year called Dream Halloween, which was just a giant Halloween party. You can look up pictures of like James Gandolfini going to it.
Amazing. Wow.
It's great.
Amazing.
That was like the coolest thing ever. And so, yeah, that's how I learned what AIDS was. And it was a very big, scary disease. And so I ended up, I think because of this show, I ended up doing like,
Wow.
AIDS charity
Wow.
work when I was, 7.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Did you know when you were a kid that like not everyone was an actor?
Yes.
You knew
Of
that.
course. Well,
I feel like
I'm
there's
just finding that out now.
but I feel like there's some kids who are in acting where you're like, what do you mean this isn't what everyone does?
This
you
is
know?
my favorite scene.
I mean, it was normal, I think. Okay, yes, this is your favorite scene. So what's happening in
Well,
this scene?
I just love when he goes running through the airport and he's going super slow in his close-ups, but the wide shot, he's burning through it. I also, the third ticket agent he talks to is Daphne Zuniga's sister
Yes.
in real life.
Really?
Yeah.
So Billy is running through the airport. He's like zigzagging through people. We did film this at LAX.
I was gonna ask if it was a real airport.
Yeah. And it's because I remember we filmed a scene later on with me in an airport.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And
yes, coming up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I remember us being there with Andrew Shue. Andrew Shue was so adorable. And the thing was, I had seen a movie. Oh, there's Daphne Zuniga's sister.
Mhm. Yes, I think so.
So
I think that's the one.
I was so when I was a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
obviously there were a lot of things that I didn't quite understand, like why I had crushes on both Aladdin and Jasmine.
Right. Sure.
But I had seen Elizabeth Shue in a movie or two, and I thought she was like the prettiest girl ever, and I had a crush on her.
Yeah.
And so I used to tell Andrew all the time, please say hi to your sister for me.
Oh.
And he would say, I would.
I feel the same way. And if you want to co-host a podcast about Elizabeth Shue with me,
Elizabeth
I would
Shue,
love that.
my God.
If the shoe fits. Every other one, Andrew and then Elizabeth. We'll just keep going.
They're like one of those, they're like one of those families where everybody in it is attractive, I feel like.
Mhm.
You know, you see those?
Mhm.
So I didn't think it
Lucky
was
them.
I didn't think it was what'd you say?
Lucky them.
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
I'm probably the least attractive member of my family.
stop.
I have very attractive siblings. But although I guess I would kind of have to say that because they might listen to this.
Yeah.
But I think that like I knew that not everybody was an actor, but also I grew up in Burbank where enough of my friends were actors that it wasn't that strange.
Sure.
So I think that I was just kind of like, yeah, this is something I do that's a little unusual, but enough people around me do it too.
Right.
And my mom wanted me to be normal. So she was like, you're still going to share a room with your sister. You're still going to go to public school.
Yeah.
You're still going to go to Girl Scouts. You're still going to like go to Temple for the holidays.
Yeah.
You're still going to be doing this. You're still going to be doing that. And I was like, okay, but this is just like I had some friends who were like more into sports than I was. So I was like, oh, Ashley plays softball and I go on auditions.
Sure.
And that was just kind of the way that it was.
Was going to college difficult? Like when, in terms of everyone, I assume was like, oh, we know who Mara is.
Well, so I went to NYU the year after the Olsen twins and the year before Haley Joel Osment.
Great. Yeah.
I would say that every time I went to a new school, whether it was middle school, whether it was high school, whether it was my arts high school that I transferred into, or that it was college, there was always like a buzz for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And then people learned that I was actually kind of normal and maybe even a little boring by their standards. Like I remember people showing up at my dorm in the middle of the night and I'd, have class the next day and people would knock on my door and I'd be like in my pajamas, no makeup. And I think it was like my RA being like, you need to do this. So I'd just be like, oh, hey, Danielle. Oh, and it would be a group of girls being like, are you Mara Wilson? And I was like, yeah. They're like, well, we just wanted to meet you. And I remember once I was like, oh, well, nice to meet you too. I have class in the morning. And they said, do you want to party with us?
And
I did not. No, I was not. Well, I don't think they realized that, like, I mean, me being on Melrose Place, notwithstanding, I kind of had to be like the good girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I was, people saw me as Matilda.
Yeah.
So I knew I had friends who were like smoking and shoplifting and like going to parties where they would like very publicly like make out and hook up with people.
Yeah.
And I could never do any of those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Not like that rapscallion Haley Joel Osment. What a scumbag.
Did you know him?
I do know him.
You
I
do
did a
know
show
him.
with him a few days ago.
Yeah.
He's great.
But
you guys both kind of like basically made it out on the other side being fine.
I mean, people don't. Well, I guess it depends what you think of fine. Because I'm definitely being a child actor. Definitely did make me a bit neurotic.
Sure.
Although I was probably always going to be a bit
but
neurotic. I'm
normal,
Jewish and Catholic.
You're a normal person.
Yes.
And that's great.
I try.
Yeah.
I try. And yeah, I think that people often think of child actors as like these spoiled brats, but in my experience, we're people pleasers.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that affects it. It's not usually for me. I had like this. Being on Melrose Place was so much fun. It wasn't being on Melrose Place or being in Doubtfire or being in any of the movies that I did that messed me up. It was the public that messed me up.
Yeah.
It was having to change who I was, having to smile in public all this time. This like emotional labor of like having to hide my feelings all the time, even when like my mom was dying of cancer.
Sure.
That was what messed me up more.
Yeah.
So here we have a Christmas party. There's me cutting a cake with a giant knife. And I remember I cut the cake and everybody claps because I cut the cake.
Sure.
It was, and I didn't even cut the cake. I cut, and I remember thinking that's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And then there's, you can hear me in the background because Daphne Zuniga was so sweet. And you can even hear her asking me like, what are your favorite flavors of ice cream?
Oh, amazing.
And she was just improvising and she was just talking to me like I was a normal person.
That's great.
Everybody on this was like so nice. And I remember her being incredibly sweet. Oh, and here's Billy because he missed his flight coming in dressed as Santa Claus. And there's me pretending to hide from him.
So when those girls bother you to party at 3 a.m., maybe this is the kind of party they wanted you to go to. Though.
Yeah, maybe it was a Christmas
cake.
party.
We have a cake. We need someone to cut it and Mara won't come. What do we do?
Yeah. So yeah, he's pretending not to be Billy.
I
He's
see right through
pretending, yeah. And he has gifts for everybody. And I'm in this very, early 90s red dress. And I mean, look at that Christmas sweater that Matt is wearing. Yeah, Jane, I think Jane is like the one that actually dresses like it's the 90s.
Sure.
Mhm.
She's very fashion forward, but she owns a fashion boutique, so it kind of makes sense.
Now, when her husband came to break up the party with her current boyfriend, was he doing it to manipulate, or was he actually having a moment of like, I love you? I couldn't tell.
He's pretty manipulative.
Okay, it wasn't
He's pretty
sincere.
manipulative.
I feel bad now.
And
I believed it.
here comes Sydney. Sydney actually shows up, but she's questioning her life decisions.
Sure.
And they're having this one moment where they get along. And I think she has kind of an emotional breakdown and doesn't come to the party.
All of their hair is amazing.
Yeah.
Every single haircut.
It's
rules.
true. All
Yeah.
of the haircuts are amazing. And
Yeah.
she gets very emotional and hugs her sister and says, like, I can't come to the party right now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You got a sweatshirt?
I have a sweatshirt because it's the 90s. Oh yeah, you can hear Michael go, you come over here, you. I remember he called me Sticky Nikki as a joke.
Great.
So we're singing Christmas songs and
Oh, man.
And now here's the moment of truth where you see Matt come out and he's incredibly sad.
Some bad news.
You can also see me dancing a little bit, and I'm a terrible dancer. So even then, I was a terrible dancer. I say this is the best party I've ever been to.
Would you say it still is?
It was a pretty good party.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good party.
Yeah.
Like I said, everybody on this show was nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody on this show was nice. So, yeah.
I think any party where Daphne Zuniga is there is probably
It's
the best
probably
party.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
party.
Yeah.
It's a good
So
party.
my mom has decided to be in Moscow.
Yeah.
And
It's a shame.
And I'm excited because I get to see my mommy.
Oh, man.
But Matt is very sad because
Yeah.
he's gotten close to me.
So what do you think she's doing?
What do I think
The
she's
mom?
doing
Where
now?
is Nikki?
I think Nikki has followed in her mother's footsteps and has become a doctor.
Okay.
I
In
think
Russia?
that in Russia.
Okay.
Yes, in Russia. That's what I think she's doing.
Yeah.
And I have an idea that I think would be a good plot line. I think that if Matt is like, I think that maybe she comes to the U.S.
Yeah.
escaping persecution
Sure.
because she's also gay.
Okay.
Wow.
And she has to get in touch with Matt
Yeah.
because she's like, Matt, there's, LGBTQ persecution
Sure.
in Russia and in some places in Russia, it's much harder than others.
Yeah.
But I think that could be a ripped from the headlines
Wow.
type story.
Yeah.
And Matt was like a social worker and a doctor. I don't know if he was a doctor, he was a social worker or something. So he, I think that could be her story.
It is fascinating. Like they did bring back the show obviously in 2009,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Which is early for like a legacy show or
It
movie
is,
10
to
years
come
ago.
back.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was a while ago before like the trend of it all coming back. And it's surprising that they haven't really tried it again.
They will.
Yeah.
I know, but it's just
Well, no,
interesting.
there have been articles saying that they're thinking about doing
Yeah,
it again.
yeah.
And yeah, people are always saying, oh, should they do a Matilda 2? Should they do a reboot of this? Should they do a reboot of that?
Yeah.
And I'm never quite sure, but this is a show that I would love to be on again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even do that much screen work anymore, but this is a show that was so much fun
Yeah.
that I would. She just said,
I've always wanted
Allison
to
always
kiss.
said, I always wanted to kiss Santa Claus.
Sure.
Mhm.
The lap sitting never worked for me. It's kind of weird.
I mean, it
Yeah.
sort of feels like you could do a Cobra Kai-esque
Oh,
version
sure,
of it.
sure.
You know, where it's like sort of in on the
Yeah.
joke a little bit and like
Yeah.
having fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, Melrose Place always was.
Yeah.
It was a self-aware show.
Yeah.
It might not have seemed like that at the time, but especially with Marsha Cross's characters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think they dated in real life.
No.
Well, too
At
is
some
Doug
point.
Savant is married,
Married to Laura Layton.
Yeah, it's funny. Doug Savant is married to Laura Layton, who plays Sydney.
Yeah.
They got married
That's great.
years later.
That's so
yeah,
fun.
which I think is really funny. And they both were so nice
Yeah.
that it really made me happy that they ended up together. And I think it was years later they were like, oh yeah, we used to work together on this show.
Yeah.
Let's go hang out. And then
Oh, they didn't fall
they
in
went
love
on a
on.
date. No, they didn't.
Oh, that's great.
She actually
Wow.
was dating Grant Show
Wow.
Oh.
at the time. And they actually tried to make that a plot line on the show. But I think eventually Laura Layton was like, guys, feels like it's prying too much into
Yeah,
my
yeah,
personal
yeah.
life. Let's not do that.
By the way, did you notice she hid his present where he couldn't get it because he's in a wheelchair?
Oh,
On top of the
no.
fridge.
That is
Right.
really
It's
mean.
very smart.
I did not notice that last time I watched it, but yeah.
And look, she got him a very 90s sweater.
A very 90s sweater.
I love that her new boyfriend looks just like her husband. It's very weird. She has a type, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, doesn't feel like that building would be wheelchair accessible.
No.
You know? It does not
very
feel like
much
at
not.
all.
Very
Yeah.
much not. And
So the courtyard was inside?
The courtyard was
an
inside.
interior set?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was inside.
Oh,
There were some.
They were acting like it was cold in the last
Yeah.
scene. They did
yeah,
a good job.
it was. Yeah, it was on a soundstage in Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
And there was the pool there that I always wanted to go swimming in. And
I wonder if that pool's still there.
No.
No, but I'm saying I wonder if they
yeah.
use it
Oh,
for
they
other
built
things
around
and
it.
they
Maybe they
like
do.
cover it up or
Well,
something.
Maybe
that's
they do.
where Sydney died in the reboot. She
Sure.
died, so probably
Yeah.
they probably closed it off after that.
a lot of people
it's a
died
crime
in that
scene.
pool. I think there was.
Oh.
Oh gosh, what was her name? She was the actress who was in. She was on Sex and the City.
Sarah
There's,
Jessica Parker. Let's go through it. Cynthia Nixon.
No,
Kim
no,
Cattrall.
no.
Kristen. Oh my
Yes,
gosh, what's her name?
The one you can't
other
remember
one.
was the
Yes,
rebel.
yes. No, she was
Yeah.
on. She was on Melrose Place too, and
Yeah.
I think her character drowns in the pool,
Oh my
Okay.
God.
or hits her head in the pool, or something like that. She was a character that everybody hated.
Kristen Davis.
Yes,
Kristen
Kristen Davis.
Yeah.
So here comes the Heidi Fleiss character at her apartment. She has very 90s hair too.
Sure.
That thing where you sort of like push up the bangs and then
Yeah.
swoop them over in the back.
I mean, speaking
Yeah.
of Desperate Housewives, she has a very Terry Hatcher look.
She does.
She does. She
Yeah.
does. Yeah, I don't know who this actress is.
Kristen
but
Alonso.
Okay.
Kristen
From
Alonso.
Days of Our Lives.
Okay, because I was going to say
Wow.
she looks familiar, but
Yep.
I don't know
She's
from what.
She's still on Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good
I
for
think
her.
this is right before Tracy Lords shows up, or
Oh.
maybe right.
Mhm.
Tracy Lords has a great part on this show. Yeah, she's actually she's pretty great.
She's also a former figure skater.
Sure. It'd
Interesting.
be funny if she exits that way.
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah,
leaves
yeah.
the set.
She's on Falcon Crest.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
A whole
Falcon
lot of
Crest.
stuff.
Well,
So Sydney wants to get out of the call girl game.
and it seems like she's letting her go real
It
easily.
seems like she's letting her
does that-
go,
does that
but
stick?
I'm sure there's probably going to be some kind of
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
Let's
she
see.
seems very nice about it.
Yeah. She's a little too nice. I can't
Yep.
remember how this ends, but I don't nothing ends well for Sydney in this season. I think she also tries to manipulate Michael into marriage at some point.
Sure.
Yeah.
The classic. The classic role.
yeah.
Isn't
There's a
Michael
scene-
married?
He is, but they split up and
Okay.
they're separated, I think. And there's a scene where she tries on her grandma's dress and she and Jane have a fight and end up in the pool.
All right.
And they could only do that scene once. So,
Oh.
yeah. So here I am. I'm an unaccompanied minor
Sure.
going to Russia
To
by
Russia.
myself.
By
Yeah.
way of Amsterdam.
By way of
You have to get
Amsterdam.
off and use your passport.
Yes.
Why would you fly that way?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
He's saying to me, like, if you have any questions, talk to the stewardess.
But he
He'll
doesn't
talk to them
introduce you to the
stewardesses.
stewardess. He just says, talk to her. Like,
Yeah.
you go, this girl's going to be by herself.
But
They
you
don't
were
have that moment.
precocious.
You
could do it.
I mean, I guess I was.
Yeah.
She was,
The character is she is very much like a little girl. There
Yes.
were characters I played
Yes.
that were precocious, but you know.
So there's a chance you didn't make it back to Russia.
oh.
Yeah, that's true.
the movie.
That's true. Oh, I ended up in Amsterdam.
I like that.
Oh, that would be a great
I
plot
like
line
that.
too.
Oh, and she's mad at him.
Yeah,
So-
that'd be great. Oh,
Yeah,
Why
it could be.
vengeance,
It could
vengeance
be.
plotline.
Yeah, you could send a child halfway across the world. Look how thin my hair was. I didn't have a hair on my head till I was like 5.
I hope if there is a reboot, when you're reunited with him, you fall asleep on his
on his neck
shoulder
instantly.
immediately.
Yes. So you'll notice they're
Oh,
taking me there,
yeah.
and then we said that we weren't going to cry,
Mhm.
but
Then you think about it.
I think about it,
I
and
wanna
I go
cry.
back. And by the way, we were at the airport, so we had to do all of these lines in ADR.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Huh.
And Doug was crying for real because he just had a baby, and the idea even of like losing your child,
Yeah.
you know. And he and my mom were crying together
Oh.
off screen. Like he and my mom would just like stand there and cry. I remember that.
Were you able to cry as a kid?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I could cry. I had a really big imagination, so I would just
Mhm.
think of sad things and
Mhm.
start crying. So yeah, that was the thing about me as a child, is I don't think that I was like the best child actor ever.
Sure,
But I
you
but I
do
could
it.
repeat lines pretty
Yeah.
well. I could learn my lines easily, and I could cry on cue.
Which
and-
is kind of half the battle.
It is
Like,
half the
that's
battle.
a lot of it.
It is
Yeah.
half the battle.
Yeah.
And I can still do those sort of to this day.
Mhm.
Let's see it.
Go ahead, come on.
Don't make me do that. That's just way too much pressure.
Patrick has to go to the airport.
I just
Please cry for our podcast.
I'll cry for the podcast. Okay, fine. I'll cry for the podcast.
Andrew Shu's a jerk to be kissing her when he knows that she also lives there.
Yeah.
Andrew Shu.
Or Billy, sorry, not
watching
Andrew Shu.
this again, Billy's character is the biggest asshole.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be like the nice, normal guy, but he's terrible in this. And
it makes sense that Kristen Davis was on this because Darren Star.
Yes,
Right.
Darren Star was
That
on
makes
this.
sense.
So it's funny because I remember during the in 2020, I watched all of Sex and the City,
Mm-hmm.
and I was making fun of it on Twitter, and then I realized, I owe a lot to Darren Star. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, that was amazing.
Very fun. So this is wrapping up. Do we have anything we want to plug? Do we have any?
Yes,
What do we got?
let's see. I just worked on a very fun audio series for Big Finish, who does a lot of like Doctor Who and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like all kinds of fun, ridiculous things. I just did a really fun audio series for them called Vam PD, which is about vampire detectives.
Great.
It's great.
And I am the one human.
Mm-hmm.
To quote Troy McClure, it's the part I was born to play, baby. And I am the one human in the group, and that's with Alimi Ballard and Juliet Lando, both of whom are fantastic people that you've seen on every cable show in the 90s ever.
Buffy.
And
Juliet,
Buffy. And Buffy, it's funny because I realized actually after we did it that she was on Buffy, he was on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I was Matilda, and I was like, oh, so we are all 90s paranormal sort of creatures, aren't we?
I wonder if that's why they got you three.
It might be.
Maybe.
It might be. But
I've never thought of that.
But that was as fun to work on as Melrose Place was,
cool.
and it is legitimately hilarious. So look up VAM VAMPD.
Great.
That is something that I worked on recently. And
Also, I love calling Matilda a paranormal creature.
A little bit.
No, I know,
is.
but it's just the funniest way to describe her.
You know,
Yeah.
it's yes, it comes from, she develops telekinesis.
Yeah.
It's an allegory for knowledge and learning, but it's an allegory for what happens to your brain if you read a lot. But, people still are always like, man, Matilda was a superhero. Matilda was this. Matilda, is like Carrie. Matilda is like Professor X. And I'm just like, yeah, sure. You know what?
All right.
That's what people remember.
Yep, we'll take it.
So yeah, that's a project that I worked on recently that
Very cool.
I absolutely loved. And
Very
go look that up on Big Finish's website.
I love it.
We will.
Thank you so
Sam
much.
PD.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great. Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
I mean, it was crazy.
That was I expected a lump of coal, but I got a big old piece of candy. I don't know, what do you get for Christmas if you're good?
Do you think you could write a show like this?
Very quickly.
You think?
No. It's crazy how many characters they have to balance.
Yeah.
And I also know that when the show started, it was a very serious. Mara talked more about it, but there was a very serious, like, it was trying to be 90210, like a more grounded. And then it becomes full-on soap opera, weird things happen. And this was right in the middle of that. So I can only imagine how hard it was to turn all these very normal characters into these huge soap opera characters. No, I can't do this.
What do you think is the hardest thing about balancing so many characters? Because a lot of your movies have a lot of characters in them.
Right. Well, it's just finding something for everyone to do, giving someone a little mini arc. Even if it's not a huge thing, you have to find a little change they go through. And to these characters all learn something or dig a deeper hole by the end of the episode. And it's impressive in 40 minutes. I couldn't do it. I would love to try though. Maybe I'm going to do the Melrose Place spinoff.
You should pitch it. What would you call it?
Secret Life of Pets 3. Wouldn't you just call it Melrose Place? I think the spinoff was just Melrose. I think they were like,
so you know what you call this
screw
one?
the place. Just place?
Just Place.
Place. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great holiday season. And we've got a really cool one coming up next.
Cameron Crowe.
Oh boy, Brian. Don't get their hopes up.
What?
Someday.
Oh, man. You're the Grinch. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Hey That's Me, a commentary podcast. This has been a That Was Just So Funny production. Your hosts have been Patrick Ottner and Brian Lynch. You can find out more about the show at HeyThat'sMePod.com or on social media at HeyThat'sMePod. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/commentary, where you can find out about guests early, submit questions for us to ask on the show, or even do a commentary to your own favorite movie with me. Our music was by Alex Peabody, and our art was by Abigail Noy. Special thanks to Annalise Nelson and the Burbank Podcast Studio. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Please tell your friends about this show.